So looking at this field here, we use this for weaned calves, and it's kind of a range improvement, a pasture improvement strategy where their manure all winter long was down in here. And so we'll be able to cut a lot of that for hay here next month. And it's just a question of cycling of the nutrition in from the hay and not letting it just go to waste. Urine, just as important, but if you're putting it on the land and moving those hay rings, you can see two over in the distance there and one right here in the foreground. You know, I used 3 this year, sometimes I'll use 4, but I move them with every bale of hay.
When do you wean your calves, or when do you come into this pasture?
Well, we don't have a specific time for weaning. We look at our grass resource first. And then we look at the condition of the mothers, and we consider a lot of things. So in general then, we will wean as early as about 9 months old, as late as 11, somewhere in there. So think, in our calving scheme, it's April 1st when they start. So, you know, you can think December, sometimes into February. Just depends on the year, depends on how severe the cold has been. So flexibility is key to doing these things because every year is just not the same.
Sure.
Sometimes they remind you of one a few years back, a winter does, but they all have their peculiarity and cold snaps and so forth like that. So flexibility in these kinds of things is key. This was where we did it last year, across the fence over closer to the house last year, and in that bigger field that's on the other side of that little reservoir. So it manages to rotate around and improve different areas while we're doing it.
Great. Do you ever have to do anything mechanical where you have the hay feeders?
The only mechanical thing that I do is I will go and spread the wasted hay, and I didn't do a very good job on that particular ring. You can see the mound inside of the feeder. But over time, I don't really worry about that too much because I know there's not a lot of cheatgrass that's going to really invade that area. I also know that where that ring is now, to the left of it, you can see where there was a ring and it didn't get dispersed. It's a wetter area.
Sure.
And it carries a different grass altogether.
Yeah.
Cheatgrass can't really even come into that heavy soil down there.
Great.
So that's one of the, you know, weed control is important, but balance and then rotation. So it'll get better every year doing it that way.
I like the fact that you keep bringing balance into everything that you do here.
Absolutely. Balance and flexibility gets you a long ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you say wean and flexible and all that, how do you manage to sustain supply to a market that's often demanding when this causes you to be flexible, but they want the beef?
One of the things about this certified organic and 100% grass-fed, as I mentioned, flexibility.
Right.
I know when the market is wanting them, and that can wander. And I'm not tied into having to get rid of them because they're eating. I have the
because you have a bunch of them all the time.
That's right. And now I select from those and I'm able to flex and give the animals that are ready to go to a given market or to our customers individually. In the case of our wholesale market, I'm still working to get where I'm 100% person to person. We still are able to sell wholesale. In the case of that, it's just a question of looking at the cattle that I have and putting those on the truck that need to go at the time. The other thing is you have a longer window. You can actually store cattle as long as you got them on feed. And so you got this flexibility. That's what I mean by that.
So what do you consider the ideal weight or the ideal condition of an animal that's ready to go?
Well, ideal weight is different than condition.
Sure. So it depends
And
upon the animal.
this is visible fat deposits around the tail head, on the brisket, and generally, especially this time of year where they're slicked off, and you can just see when they turn how many wrinkles are coming on their ribs, how many wrinkles are on their neck.
So you go mainly by the condition of the cattle.
Absolutely.
Great.
And then, so we'll have some superstar steers and heifers that'll be done in 17 months, at 17 months of age. They're plenty fat. We'll kill those in December. Some 17 and 18-month-old there in December. Some of them need to have that extra time over another winter, and then they'll start going in the spring. In fact, Monday, I'll gather them all up and I'll take 4 and we'll go to town with 4 of them for individual customers and billings. So it's flexibility, right?
Sure.
And then I have to overlay that on the ability to get processing space in our processor in Columbus.
Right.
And that's the key. So I need to plan for what I think I'm going to be able to slaughter a year in advance. It's a long time, but it's worth it.
That's a great question that comes up now with the COVID-19, that where we've centralized those sorts of facilities and we don't have that talent anymore of butchers, meat cutters, that we've really kind of reached a bottleneck for some of this more local type of production.
Right, and we're really blessed to have, a certified organic plant in Columbus, certified organic plant down the road in Big Timber. I know Wes Henthorne uses those guys down there in Big Timber at Pioneer Meats. We use Stillwater Packing in Columbus. And it just takes some planning and coordination to know what and when you're going to need to have that capacity. And so, like I said, I will plan a year in advance. And come September of this year, I will give Stillwater my needs for the whole year coming up till the next September. And you just have to think through that. So when COVID hit, all of a sudden we had so much more interest and so many more, but fortunately I had some excess capacity built into my estimates, and I was able to flex that way. And that's the whole thing about this, is the efficiency that's built into the institutional food market, into the institutional beef, is the inflexibility that so-called efficiency brings, that slam the brakes on all of America's beef and pork supply in the name of efficiency. And like I said in the earlier interview, efficiency is the mortal enemy of flexibility and resilience. And it just needs to be rethought. And that's what this kind of grass feeding and grass finishing of cattle is.
One thing when you look at the packing industry, and I know this from the sheep example, is if you think about a packing plant, if they can run more pounds per hook, they're going to,
Right.
like you say, they have that efficiency. But that efficiency at the packing level, is that always the ideal situation for the range livestock producer that we see here in Montana?
I don't think so. I think it needs to be rethought, exactly.